What's going on, everybody, and welcome back to Bourbon of the Week. My name's Chris. I'm going to be your host for today, and today we have a bottle called Blue Run Kentucky Straight High Rye Bourbon Whiskey. This is 65% corn, 30% rye, 5% malted barley. This comes out of Georgetown, Kentucky, and I've got a lot of information about this bottle and not a lot of information all at the same time. So let's pour this up, and everybody knows before we get started on all of that, beautiful pop, time for the traditional sip. Cheers, y'all. I'm usually ready for this part by now. Cheers, y'all. It's spicy. So that's right, guys. This is Blue Run Kentucky Straight Bourbon Whiskey. This is their high rye mash bill, as we mentioned. This is in Georgetown, Kentucky. It is sourced, I think, right? So the question on this is, what's your definition of sourced? This bottle right here, their high rye mash bill, is actually done by Jim Rutledge, who used to be the master distiller at Four Roses, but obviously they don't have a distillery, so they're using somebody else's distillery. Now, for me, sourced means they make the whiskey, you buy their whiskey, then you can blend it or age it or do whatever you want with it before you bottle it. But for this particular bottle, Jim Rutledge is actually making the whiskey. They're just using somebody else's facility. To me, that's not sourced. Now, there's contract distilling, which some people still say is sourced, but you can contract distill and basically tell that distillery what you want your mash bill, what you want your age statement to be, and all of that before they start distilling, and then they still distill it for you. For this one, though, Jim Rutledge is doing the distilling. So I have to say personally that I don't think that that's sourced. Now, you let me know in the comment section below what you think the definition of sourced is and whether using somebody else's facility is still considered sourced whiskey. Now, this is non-age stated, but everything tells us it's about 4 years old. I'd probably say right around that 4-year mark, if not just a little bit older, according to TTB records. But let's get into this. You know the rules: price, taste, drinkability. We always start with drinkability. This comes in at 111 proof. Now, as you can tell by how much whiskey is in this bottle, I haven't had a lot of time to drink this, right? I've opened it up just the other day. I tried some. I wanted to get my tasting notes and see what I thought about it before today's review. I will say this says on the side batch fall. It doesn't say batch 1, batch 2, or batch 3. And then the date is 8/18/2022. It's bottle 3,879. And then it says 5215. I'm not really sure what the 5215 means, but from my understanding, there was a release in 2021 of fall. Then there was a release in spring of 2022. So my guess is this is batch 3, but I haven't seen a lot on the internet about a batch 3. All that being said, we're going to stick with drinkability on this. How much ethanol kick is there on 111 proof for this? Let's try it out. This is kind of tough because when you get into high rye mash bills like this at 30% rye, it's really hard to distinguish the difference between a spiciness from the rye mash bill and an ethanol kick from 111 proof. When I first tried this the other night, I thought I was getting a lot of heat. That was obviously the neck pour. And then tonight I thought the same thing. But now as I'm sitting down, I'm letting this open up a little bit. I'm kind of swirling it in the glass. I feel like I'm getting a lot more spiciness, which I love, versus that actual ethanol kick. So for this, I was originally leaning like in the 7.5, 7.6 range. You know, we give it an 8.0 if it drinks right at its proof. I feel like we're going to put it closer to that 8.0 than anything else. Yeah, I'm not going to say it drinks super under its proof, but I do think that if I were to blind this, I'd probably say like 110, right? I'd put it right in that 110 range, which is right where it's sitting at 111 proof. So we're going to go right over, a smidge over 8.0 on this. Let's go like 8.02 when it comes to drinkability on this. 111 proof, not that bad. And I do think as this has more time to open up, that might change just a little bit. And listen, make sure you stick around for this week's Bourbon Bomb of the Week. We're going to learn a little bit about this butterfly right here as their logo, as well as the 5 partners and now a 6th that they brought on here in 2023. Let's get into taste though next. Now, I had to pour up a little bit more as we get into taste on this, but I am just so lost when it comes to taste on this glass right here. It's kind of weird. From the second I opened this bottle up until now, I just don't know whether I like it, love it. I definitely don't hate it. But here, let me tell you what I'm getting right now. On the front, it's very caramel forward. You get a little bit of that vanilla. Then it moves right into that rye spice, and I feel like I'm getting a lot more spice than I would expect, even at 30% rye, which I do not hate. I love spiciness, especially when it comes to a bourbon, especially when I'm expecting it. When I know it's 30% rye, that's what I'm looking for. Then I don't move into too much oak, but I do get a little bit of oak on the end of this. Again, I think it's right around that 4-year mark, so I'm not expecting a dense, heavy oak, but you get like a sweet oak on the end of this, and there's nothing wrong with it. It just seems, I don't even want to call it one-dimensional. It's more straightforward than anything else. And what I mean by that is there's definitely a bunch of flavors in here, from the vanillas to the caramels to that rye spice to some black pepper to some allspice to a little bit of that oak at the very end there. But at the end of the day, it's not like anything's crazy overwhelming or crazy out of line when it comes to a bourbon. And again, not anything wrong with that. That's usually what I'm looking for in a bourbon. It's a little bit short on the finish, but that's the only real knock I have for this when it comes to taste. I just feel like I've drank a lot of exceptional bourbons and there's nothing exceptional about it. But at the end of the day, if I want to sit down and drink a glass of bourbon, if somebody told me what quintessential bourbon was supposed to taste like, I feel like that's what I'm getting in this glass right here. So can I hate on a glass for not being exceptional, or can I just admire a glass that does something very well, and that's bourbon, which is what I'm drinking right here? It's just a very back and forth question in my mind. I've been, again, drinking so many unique and different bourbons lately that when you come back to something so traditional, so easy drinking, so I don't want to say, again, not complex, but at the end of the day, simple, and that's the better word for it, it's simple. It's so good, and yet it's so boring all at the same time. I don't really know how to approach this. If I had family and friends over and they could drink higher proof whiskey and they wanted to try my favorite quote unquote bourbon, this might be it. When it comes to my favorite quote unquote straight up bourbon, what tastes like bourbon, take everything else out of the equation, give me something that tastes like bourbon. This is what I would probably hand to them, and that's not a bad thing. So I'm going to give this a pretty good score when it comes to taste. I won't make you wait any longer. Let's go high 8s though, because again, I don't think anything exceptional about it, a little bit short on the finish. So let's go like 8.79 when it comes to taste on this. And last but certainly not least, we're going to get a price on this, and that's where things get a little controversial. I've heard both sides of the spectrum saying this is easily worth $100 and this is a price grab. They're basically out here to make money. They won't be here in 5 years. They just want money and then they want to dip. I don't think that it's either of those extremes. I don't think it's definitely worth $100. I also don't think that Blue Run is going to be gone in 5 years because of some of the information that we're about to give you in the Bourbon Bomb of the Week, where they're out here just to grab your money and leave. I do think it falls right somewhere in the middle, and I don't really know exactly where that falls when it comes to my score, so let's think about that for just a second. When I think about price and I think about that $100 price point, there's only 2 bottles right now that really come to mind that I truly love every time that I have them. And so far it's been 2XO, the Phoenix, and the Innkeeper's blend, as well as Booker's. And I bring up Booker's all the time because I love Jim Beam. I love that nuttiness. And now that I think about it, I feel like I do get just a slight nuttiness off this, which I also enjoy. But Jim Beam, when it comes to Booker's, as well as 2XO, which is Dixon Deadman, this is Jim Rutledge. It's $100. Again, I don't think they're price gouging here, but at the same time, I can understand why people are upset at $100. I got to take one more sip before I give it a score. So what are we talking about here? We're talking about 30% rye, which we know costs more money. We're talking about Jim Rutledge. We're talking about 4 years old, and we're talking about 111 proof. I think it's slightly overpriced, but I'm not saying it's crazy overpriced. If this was $70, I feel a lot more comfortable picking this up at $70. I will say they have some older age stated stuff out there, some 14-year-old whiskey that I would love to try. But for this right here without an age statement, not that age matters to me, because if it tastes good, it tastes good. It's a traditional bourbon. It's 111 proof. There's nothing off-putting about it. I just feel like for some reason $100 rubs me the wrong way, and I would like it much more at 70, if not even 50 when we're truly talking about it. $50 to $55 for this bottle seems fair from everything that I know about it. Let's take one more sip, I promise, then we'll give it a score. I feel like I have to fall right in the middle, right? Like a 7.29 seems like a fair spot for $100. I think it's a little bit overpriced at $100. I don't think there's anything bad about the whiskey. Again, I do think it's one of the better tasting straight up bourbon whiskeys. I have just personally moved into a realm of trying crazy new finishes, crazy new bourbons, crazy new mash bills. So for right now, 7.29 is where we're going to put this when it comes to price. But listen, I'm not going to pour any more up, but let's send it over to this week's Bourbon Bomb of the Week and talk about the 5 people behind this bottle, and now maybe a 6th as well. So for this week's Bourbon Bomb of the Week, we're going to talk about the 5 people that started this company. We're going to talk about a 6th person that they just added, and we're going to talk about the logo, the butterfly, which I absolutely love. We have a lot to cover in a short period of time, so make sure you turn this video down to half speed if you really have to. But in the meantime, let's start with the co-founders, Mike Montgomery and Jesse McKnight. So Jesse McKnight, we're actually going to come back to because he's the reason for the logo on this bottle right here, and he's that tie to Kentucky that every good story needs. But this bottle, Mike Montgomery, I would consider the face of this actual company. He's the one that's doing all the interviews on YouTube. He's the one that's the CEO, the founder of this company, and he's actually got a career in politics before this, and it probably helps him out a lot to have somebody like that on the team. Now, I tried to find out more information on the next 3 people, which are Devin, Tim, and Andy. There's not a lot out there. They're not on their website. They're not on the internet. Now, Devin did do one interview with the Bourbon Junkies, and he is actually the person behind the brand and the design on this particular bottle right here. He worked for Nike and designed like 3 of the top 10 shoes for Nike, which is crazy, but it is a beautiful bottle design. I cannot say anything wrong about that. It's just we don't do anything about bottle design. We're more about the whiskey inside of it, and that's going to come up here on Bourbon of the Week again soon. So make sure you stick around and click that like and subscribe button so you can hear that story as well. And the last 2 guys are Tim and Andy, and all I know about these 2 is Tim is the Facebook guy, and I'm assuming he's doing something with marketing or maybe advertisement. And then Andy, his father and his uncle ran a wholesaling company, and his grandfather did distribution. So I'm assuming that's what he has to do when it comes to these bottles right here. But I will say these 5 guys teamed up seems like the A team when it comes to putting out a new bottle in 2020 and now here in 2023. But it didn't just stop there because they added the 6th man of the year, a man named Trey Wade from Black Bourbon Society, who basically took over as the chief experience curator. If you've been following Blue Note on Instagram or anywhere else, you'll notice they're doing barrel pick programs now that are very exclusive and very sought after to get involved in, and that has everything to do with this gentleman named Trey Wade. Now, the only knock I have on Trey Wade is I did not win. I did put my name out there. Just saying, Trey. Next time, give me a call beforehand. We'll work something out. But let's talk about the butterfly real quick. Now, I said before we would talk a little bit more about Jesse McKnight. Now, Jesse McKnight was the one that made the call to Mike Montgomery and said, hey, we've got barrels. What are we going to do with them now? Jesse grew up right across the street from Elijah Craig. He actually grew up right across the street from a place called Blue Run, which was actually a spring where maybe some of the first bourbon was ever distilled here in the United States. Now, they asked Jesse about his experiences growing up across the street from Elijah Craig, and he mentions the Viceroy butterfly, which is actually the state butterfly of Kentucky. I didn't even know that existed, but that makes sense why there's a butterfly on here right now. They also talk about the metaphor of a butterfly going from caterpillar to butterfly and the experience of changing and growing and becoming better, and that's what they want to do here at Blue Run is start out but also grow and experience something even better than what they have right now. So let's hope they can do that because right now they're starting off very strong with this bottle right here. But hey, if you've made it this far in the video, make sure you click that like and that subscribe button. Let's send it back over and see where this bottle scores and see if it makes our top 10 for 2023. Cheers, y'all. Now, here's the thing. I'll be honest with you guys. I always am. First of all, shout out Tom Burns for this bottle right here. I would not have it without you. I will say I have held off buying Blue Run because of that price point. I don't disagree that that is a high price point for not knowing enough about the bottle. I feel like there's enough information now and a name behind it with Jim Rutledge that you should at least give it a chance. If you're out there and $100 is your cutoff, buy this bottle, try it. If you don't love it, then you wasted 1 bottle, but I don't think you're going to hate it, and that's kind of where this falls for me at an 8.03. It jumps into our top 10. I doubt it will be there long, but it's there for right now at an 8.03. I can understand if you don't want to pick up this bottle because you don't know enough about it, but just do a little bit of research, whether it's this review or other interviews, and you can find out more about this bottle. But in the meantime, make sure you check me out on Instagram at Bourbon of the Week. Go click that follow button over there, pushing 10,000, which is crazy. Check out our Discord and our Patreon, both those links in the description below. Unless you want to just complain about Glencairns the whole time, you'll understand that if you're a patron. Make sure you click that like and that subscribe button. I would greatly appreciate it. Please don't drink and drive. Always drink responsibly and stay healthy, stay happy. Stay drinking. Cheers, y'all. What's it called? What's the butterfly? I just said it. Viceroy. Is that how you say it? Cheers.